bell has been rung. So we got to give him 30 seconds, though, apparently.
You're ready.
Think we can go? All right. I'm going to bring this Park and Rec Board meeting to order. First, we got to figure out who's here. Mary, would you do a quick roll call for the record?
Yes. Chairman Hill.
I am here.
Member Brush.
Here.
Member Kohlmeyer.
Here.
Member Volkman. Absent. Member Walker.
Here.
And Steve Reimer is our new Park Board member, but he will be joining us in January, so he's not here at this point. And Sandra Douglas is absent. We have a chairman. We have a quorum, Chairman.
We have a quorum. Terrific. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? Do I have any discussion on the minutes? No? All right. I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Approved. Chance for people who are here to comment on anything they wish. Do we have any takers? All right. I'm gonna move on. We have a special presentation today from an organization incredibly near and dear to my heart, the Friends of Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation. Rick, are you going to do the honors? Rick Amos has been involved with the foundation for probably the better part of 10 years and is responsible more than anyone else for the 4th of July celebration here in town, which is such a great community event. So anyway, Rick.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for having us here tonight. This is a great evening for us to be here tonight. And before I get into why I'm here, I'd love to just take a moment, if I may, to reiterate what Steve talked about. 8 years ago, with Fred's help and some other help within the community, we decided as the foundation for the Park and Rec Department to get involved with the 4th of July celebration for the city of Lake Forest. And it was a great event that we wanted to make even better. And so we kind of tweaked the formula a little bit, and here we are 8 years later, and it's probably one of the marquee events in our community for the residents of Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. And getting better every year, or at least that's our goal, of making it better every year. We get about 10,000 attendees every year for the 4th of July event, and it's turned into just a spectacular community event that is now drawing folks from around our communities as well. You know, the function of the Friends Foundation is basically to be a fundraising effort on behalf of the Park and Recreation Department. And we've been refining our goals and our activities over the years to continue to raise more and more funds so that we can help support the programs of the director and of the department. And we're very excited about the mission, and we're very excited about what we're trying to do. You know, the 4th of July, as well as a lot of the other events, you know, it doesn't happen without the contribution and commitments of a lot of folks. And I'll take a moment just to recognize the fact that, you know, from police, fire department, you know, streets and sanitation, Mary's department, Sally Swarthout, Kathy Japonich, there's just a tremendous amount of work that goes into pulling this off that starts in about January and goes up until July. So, you know, as the Friends, we get a lot of the recognition for pulling off this night. But I can tell you that behind the scenes, there's a lot of folks here in the city that are really making this happen, and so we really want to thank them. And Mary and Bob Kiley, there's a lot of folks here that are doing a lot of work throughout the winter and spring to pull us together. So
They're almost. It's a smaller list of the people who aren't involved. I would say probably everybody in the whole city organization is driving toward that.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of people, you know, the forestry department, I mean, there's just a lot of folks that we have a lot of meetings in the planning process that are doing. I would guesstimate there's probably 60, 70 people at some point in time that have a part in pulling this together, and certainly, you know, our foundation is very supportive and very appreciative of the effort, so thank you to all those involved. But tonight we're here because, as you know, we're a fundraising vehicle. And several years ago, when the Town Line Park was going in, there was a need or a want for a pavilion to go in. And so our foundation decided we would take it upon ourselves to help fundraise for that event. And I know from talking with Mary and with Sally that about every weekend there's somebody using that pavilion, and it's been a big part of the success of Town Line Community Park. And so we made the commitment that we were going to fund half of that park, right? And so we want to also thank you. It's taken us a little longer than we would have liked to honor a commitment, but we'd like to present a check to the Park and Recreation Department tonight for $100,000.
Oh,
That goes towards
that is
supporting
awesome. Are we going to do these? Rick, apparently there's going to be a photo session. I'd like to invite everybody, all the board members up here to take a picture. This is official business, guys. This is a big deal. What do you want? Wherever you want. Or actually, go ahead. We can do it here. Go ahead. We can do it here? Okay. I've been told that you should get a picture of the two of us and then everybody. So. You hold on. Down.
The good news is you guys are the same height, so it looks good.
That's good. Okay, come on, guys. Come on. This will be the real. And then you can check down. There you go. Maybe a little bit more, like right into the chin.
Right.
Who's playing next year, 4th of July?
Well, oddly enough, that process starts about now, and we're fielding lots of ideas, and we haven't made a decision yet. And usually it takes us till about February to lock in on an act this year. But if anybody has any ideas, feel free to suggest those, because we considering everybody from the Beach Boys to country western artists to some 80s and 70s artists. So it's wide open. Generally, our budget can't afford most of the names that you'll first think of. Down to about your 7th or 8th choice, and then send me an email, and we'll see if they're available. But
awesome.
Thank you very
well,
much.
thank you so much for coming out and talking about the Friends, and thank you very much for the $100,000. That's a big deal, and I believe we are within shouting distance of completing the funding of that great structure out there on Town Line. So
yeah, I look forward to being here a year from now, and we'll have fully paid off our obligation.
Outstanding, terrific. Well, good luck fundraising this year, and thanks for coming by.
Thank you very much.
Steve, could I just add one thing?
Sure.
So, as city staff, we have to go to a lot of meetings, and I have to say that for those of you who are out there listening and wondering about a group that you might want to get involved with, this is the group that is really got there's tons of energy. The meetings are so much fun because it really is all the meetings are being planned to put on fun activities for the community that will give back and allows you to connect with your neighbors and all your friends and really be involved at really some big, really events that it doesn't feel like work when you're working at them because they're so much fun. And Rick and all of them are shepherding that kind of work on behalf of our department. And I just go to these meetings amazed by the passion and the energy that the residents bring to those meetings on our department's behalf. So thank you, Rick. And I know you guys are always looking for members to join the foundation. So if you'd like to join a great group, I highly recommend giving Rick a call or Mark Milliman, the president,
Great
a call,
plug.
or myself. So
That's a great plug. Having been involved with that organization for a long time myself, I can concur with that. All right. Thanks, Rick.
thank you, Rick.
All right. Next on the agenda is the Forest Park project, and Ralph Giswaldo is here. Welcome, Ralph. Glad to see you. What's going on out there?
Thank you, Steve. First, let me start out by saying, Steve, I know that I was actually on the board when you made that donation. I think you were the president of Friends of the Park. So,
Yes. Yeah.
thank you for that as a previous board member. And thank you, board members, for all that you do. Being a previous on the board and a chairperson, on the board. I know that you make a great sacrifice and you make a great difference in the city of Lake Forest, so thank you for that. But in addition to that, I'm here to talk to you about Forest Park. Forest Park is an amazing project. I actually started out as the chairperson when it came in for us. Two amazing ladies came in for us. Joan Dupre, who I think is here tonight, and Jane O'Neill came from the Lake Forest Garden Club and made a donation of a master plan for Forest Park, because there never was a plan for Forest Park. And here we are almost at the end of that journey, which has probably been a 7-year journey. And as most of you know, the Forest Park is a public-private partnership. And as the chairperson of the president of the Forest Park Project Board, I'd like to say that the city has been amazing to work with. Between Kathy Cerniak from HPC, Mary Van Arsdale, and Bob Kiley, they have really, truly been a great partner in working with us toward getting to this amazing park that we have. Tonight, I'm going to give you an update on fundraising, and we're also going to show you some pictures of the park, talk a little about the changes that we've made in the park. I'm actually not going to do that because I'm not the expert. We've got an amazing board on our executive board, which makes me wonder why I'm actually the president of it. But Cliff, who was previously on our board, Cliff stepped down from the board because he has worked hand in hand with our landscape architect, Stephen Simpson. And he is actually the local liaison that's worked with the park. So I think that if anybody's wondered who's been wandering around that park at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning with a miner's hat putting up stakes for plants, that's actually Cliff. It's not somebody that's stalking Lake Forest. It's Cliff working through the wee hours of the morning. But this started out as a $4 million project, $800,000 from the city for infrastructure items and $3.2 million from the private sector. The project has turned into approximately a $4.2 million project. Not that we're over budget, but we've added some things to the park because our fundraising has been so successful. I think you're going to see some great pictures today. I think Mary Van Arsdale mentioned to me that one of the pictures from the park almost looks like something you put above your fireplace now. But I wanted to give you an update on fundraising. This came from Mary Hoffman, who's in charge of fundraising for us, who's done an outstanding job, and I just wanted to read her report to the board. The Forest Park fundraising has moved at a very nice pace throughout the project, but has accelerated the past 6 months as the impact of the work has become more visible. Public enthusiasm is evident with the recent October public mailing and a wonderful affirmation of the rehabilitation work, nearly 85% complete. The mailing had a quick response of almost $80,000 donated in less than 30 days, and has brought us within 6% of our goal to raise $3.2 million. Through personal tours to target groups, letters, published articles, posters, signboards, and 2 citywide mailings in 2014, we have raised public awareness of the project. The Forest Park project team has been committed to making the community understand that it is your park, Forest Park. At the center of the campaign is the belief that we are the generation to steward the preservation for future generations, that we've had to set out to just do that, including funds for future maintenance of the park. We've actually included in our $3.2 million, that's now $3.4 million, a $250,000 endowment for future maintenance of the park. We have worked closely with city staff to execute our communications, and once again, the city staff at Lake Forest has been just outstanding to work with. The project has received support from businesses, Lake Forest Bank and Trust, our lead Legacy Circle donor, and joined by the Chicago Bears. It's the first time the Chicago Bears has ever donated to something like this, to a park. Usually they have other resources and things that they donate to, but they liked it so much, and it actually brought back memories of where the Bears used to run up and down those stairs, the Belvedere stairs, and work out there. As well as we've had tremendous support from private individuals and other like-minded organizations such as the Historic Preservation Society and the Lake Forest Open Lands Association. Our Legacy Circle of Gifts of 100,000 or more has 23 members. I just think that's outstanding, the generosity in this town. It has been a very successful public-private endeavor, and pledge funds will be collected until December 2017. That's my pitch. We still have work to do. We still have funds to raise, so those that want to make those donations, you have to 2017 to meet those pledge commitments. A special note of thanks from me and the board to members of our leadership team who have given countless hours to this project and have personally raised significant funds for the project in addition to managing many of the other aspects of the project. Peter Cherry, who came on our board halfway through, has been outstanding as a treasurer of our project, but he's also been kind of a project manager. and his time and donation to the project has been outstanding. And those original two amazing ladies, Jane and Joan, have stayed with us and through this process, and they just have been outstanding as the vice presidents of our board. It is because of their tremendous efforts and the rest of this team, this extremely talented team, that we have been able to make Forest Park a reality for this community. It is an amazing park. It's been an amazing process, 7 years. But I think what we're going to be able to show you now through Cliff's charts and slides and explanations, we're going to be able to show you some of those results that we've had out there, and they truly are amazing. Cliff?
Thanks, Rob. Again, I'm Cliff Miller, and thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight.
Welcome, Cliff. Glad you're here.
I am just going to great. This is the board that we actually had, Mary had put together with Chuck, and we had on site for quite some time at the crosswalk between Deer Path and the Belvedere, because one of the goals, of course, from us during the construction process was to keep everybody involved and aware of where we were at, where we were planning on being. And so there's a tentative schedule in there that we were on track for. And then down below, they're hard to see from here, but that's the before and afters that kind of are pictures taken out of the master plan from Stimson and Associates. And they're the before and afters based on photographs and drawings. We're past most of this now.
Cliff,
The board is no longer.
you need to stand by the microphone because otherwise they can't pick it up. Thanks.
Sorry about that. Anyway, we're past this right now. We've kind of moved beyond. I think this goes to September 15th. And what I have here is a plan view of the park. And what we're showing in this graphic is the green striped areas that occupy most of your view are the areas that we are considering complete by the end of this year, which, given weather, we're hitting real quickly. You can see there's the drawings up along the bluff top itself, which is where the bluff walk and all the masonry is currently underway. That portion we do not see being completed. We're still receiving stone. We still have materials coming in, and of course, it's colder than hell out there right now, so the masons are getting shut down pretty quick. We have tents built, we have heaters, we're doing what we can, but as far as the landscaping goes, a lot of this is currently being put to bed. So if you look at it from a land-based percentage, it's about 85% of the park will be complete or is pretty much complete now. The other section, which is again all across the upper portion of the bluff, segments of that are complete. Segments of that are partially complete, and segments are incomplete, waiting for masonry work to be performed. But, given the weather, we had a very wet spring that constantly delayed us on doing a lot of the landscape and base work. And, of course, now we have this near record temperatures shutting us down a little bit earlier than we would have liked. But overall, as you can see, the park is almost complete from a square footage point of view, and from a resident's point of view, the way they're walking all over it, it's in full function at this point for a lot of people, because every time I'm here, especially on the weekends, there's a constant flow of people coming through the park, and I get nothing but positive comments, and it's really nice because I think many of you know that there was a bit of controversy with this park when it first started, and this went back to City Council, back to you, back to the board, who then took it to this next step. And again, phenomenal amount of work by Jane and Joan and Ralph, Mary, making this happen. I don't think the residents, up until this point where they could put their hands on something, really realized what was happening out here. And now that people are out there walking, they're enjoying and looking at the lake, which you couldn't do for a long time, the feedback has just been tremendous, positive. And, I'm just consider myself fortunate to be part of that project and to work with the city. I've lived here for a long time. I spent a lot of time at the beach with my kids. It's nice to be able to give back, and this has been a wonderful opportunity for myself and others to do just that. You can see here, picture's a little dark, but this is city crews working to help establish the vistas and the openings that we created and have taken care of, and the city's been very This is the forestry department. Of course, all departments of the city have been incredibly helpful in this whole endeavor and still and continue to be so. And we will be working with Chuck and Mary this winter, continuing that process because while most of the main park construction activities will slow down for the winter or cease, we're still going to be working toward doing, rehabilitation and continuing to move through the BLUFF work, which we have only done in segments to this point. You can see here's the new view. Again, the slide's a bit dark, but you can see on the left the granite cobble. On the right is a stone edge to the pavement. On the far right, you can just see the line of the gravel pathway that's now in, and that's really popular. And people are just, one of the problems is we have construction fence everywhere, and every Monday after the weekend, we have to put it all back because it all gets ripped down every Saturday morning by the first people through. And I think it's just because of how popular this space is now. This is a view that was entirely lawn or wood chips as of 8 months ago. And look at it now. It would look as if it's always been there. And this is part on the northern end where we're reforesting the park. Taking, as you may know, a lot of the trees have slowly been dying, and all of the park originally was forested. So to have the opportunity to come back and rebuild some of that forest has been really a positive thing for us, and the community has been behind us 100%. Here you can see one of the vistas that was opened up, and to me that's what Forest Park really is all about. It's the view. The first carriage road put in at turn of the century, that was all about augmenting the view from vehicular traffic. At that point it was carriages, but it was still put there so people could see the lake. So the opportunity to open up these vistas. You would not have seen a regatta from above in the past, and now here you can see in the foreground the Belvedere. This is looking out through those view sheds that have been opened up. This is an example of one of the more intimate views where you're looking through the forest and through the trees to see versus the view I showed you earlier, which is one of the larger views or bigger openings. This is at the very north end, even up there at this very point in the park on the tableland. There's this little peekaboo for people to get a more, for lack of a better word, a more private or intimate experience with the park because most of the people see the park as lawn, or they see the park as, a loop road to quickly take a look at the lake. They don't see all these other opportunities, and one of the beauty of the path in this level of construction is people are now understanding that it's a 30-acre site. It's not just a beach or it's not just lawn. There's all these cool little areas. Look at this view. I'm standing on the lawn in the middle of the park looking due north. How many people have actually stood on the lawn looking due north in the park? Not many. They get out, they go down the stairs to the Belvedere, they jump off from the parking lot, go down the ramp, or they walk the roads. But very few people actually get into the park, and that's where the path is such a plus because it really marries people to the park. It brings them into a pedestrian way in places they haven't been, shows them views that they haven't seen. This is an excellent example of this. This was originally a buckthorn and honeysuckle thicket. You couldn't see 10 feet. And the city staff came in under Chuck's direction and cleared the non-native species. And as part of the project, we've now put in this boardwalk. This boardwalk rests upon the logs that we cut from the bluff. So we've been trying to, be proactive and ecologically minded with some of this work. So those logs are all supporting the boardwalk. Again, here's another view that's been opened up, kind of hard to see in this light. But those views and opening up those views create a whole other dimension to the park. So the path has created another dimension, reconnecting. And one of the things that I think is most important with these views that have opened up is we now connect to the beach. You stand on the bluff and you look down at the people down on the beach, walking the trail, and it goes back to being one park, where quite frankly for a long time people thought of it as two different places. They didn't see it as one park, and now they do again. Here's that path going through an area that again was all wood chip or lawn. Now you can see it's been planted for reforestation. Here you can see looking more up towards the north from the Belvedere. Again, we now have a path so that people don't have to be on the road in order to enjoy it. There are benches along here. Those are currently under construction. Another one of these great views that have opened up. Fall was just beautiful there. Now most people don't think of Forest Park really as woodland, But look at this view. I mean, that's just a fabulous top of the bluff looking out over a ravine forest. And here you can see, I'm going to turn this over to Chuck. He's going to talk about, you know, where we're going from here. But generally speaking, I think it's really, really been a very positive experience, certainly for me and for all the people that I've been involved with. And now that people have something to hold on to, like Mary Hoffman that Ralph was talking about, now they're excited. Now the money is coming in, and now we have a lot of people that, even people that were not for this, which we all heard from a couple of years ago, are now coming up to me and thanking us for what we've done, because they never really, a lot of people don't understand the vision until it's built. And now that it's that way and people see what an asset this park is, it's just made it more of a better experience, I think, for everybody. So I'm real happy to be part of this, and I'm happy for you two to be as well. So again, thanks.
Thanks, Cliff. It does look absolutely spectacular. Chuck?
All right. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm just going to briefly talk about what the plans are going forward this year. I'm just going to use this. It's one of the design maps that were in the original plan. I'm going to use it just to point out a few things. We are wrapping things up quickly out there, as Cliff mentioned. So we are starting to take down, all the tree protection is down actually, but we're taking the fencing down. We're trying to get the park back to looking open and looking cleaned up. So a lot of that's underway right now. Of course, we would love to offer people the ability to have free access to the whole park, but of course public safety is our main concern. And since the park is still under construction, there are areas that we're going to have to restrict. So what we've decided this year is over the winter months, we are going to be leaving the ring road closed to vehicular traffic. So we won't be opening that until the spring. And that's partly due to the final course is not on the pavement yet. So that provides some hazards potentially, and we don't feel we can plow it either. So we're going to do one strip down the ring road. We're probably going to use a brush machine so that we don't damage any of the stonework out there. So it'll just be one width that people can walk through the park. We'll be putting some bollards up at both ends of the ring road so that the machine can get in, people can walk in, they don't have to walk around a gate or anything like that, but it'll only be walking traffic. We are planning to have December 12th be the last day of construction out there. Of course, things got shut down a little bit earlier with planting and stuff, but as Cliff mentioned, there's still things going on now. We do want the 12th to be the final end date. The contractor that's doing the stonework still is very optimistic that they're going to get quite a bit done. And they are still working out there in the cold. We're anticipating the path that goes to the Belvedere to be open. It is pretty close to complete. There's some concrete work at the end by Deer Path and Lake that still needs to be put in, but that should be open. They're working hard on the Belvedere stone right now. So we're anticipating that portion being done. So as we move forward in the next couple weeks, we'll be making things safe as much as possible. So we're filling in next to the path, things like with soil, things like that, to make sure that people can't step off and get hurt. Again, that's our #1 concern. So where we can't do that, we will be putting up some fencing. And one example would be along the bluff path that Cliff just showed you pictures of. There are areas, there are foundations for benches. Benches are still being delivered this year. We may see some of them installed. So we're going to fence those areas off so the contractor can work on those in theory throughout the winter as he can get in there. So we need to have access through the ring road for contractors, but you know, if we don't have a lot of snow out there, you could still see a little bit going on with that. So You might see some little pockets that have fences along the road, along the bluff, where we're going to restrict people for their own safety. So, let's see, I mentioned the bollards already. As far as the south parking lot goes, the west side of it will be used for storage. There's still some trees and shrubs in there that will be stored over winter. The east side up here is, we are possibly going to be opening that for parking this winter. That has yet to be determined. We'll make that call in a couple of weeks after the 12th. We want to make sure that everything is safe down in that area. There is a lot of concrete work going on right now, actually this week even there. So we want to see how that progresses. We would like to be able to offer a few parking spots there. The path that goes through here has some work to do on it to make it safe as well. We don't want to open up the parking lot if we can't provide safe passage. So that's kind of the plan for the next few weeks. Again, this is totally dependent on the weather, so we're going to do everything we can to make as much accessible as possible.
I hear it's going to be 80 tomorrow.
All right, we're back in business, and
Wishful thinking, right?
all right, any questions?
Questions, guys? No? I just want to thank all of you from the Forest Park project who are here tonight. You know, Ralph is very self-effacing, but he's been behind this thing from the beginning, and a champion, and so my hat's off to you, Ralph, and I know everybody feels that way. Great, you've given a great gift of your time to the city. So anyway, I don't want to single you out necessarily. Cliff, I mean, everybody deserves great kudos, and everybody said it 100 times. I'll just underscore it in case it needs it. It just looks spectacular, and I can't wait to see it in the spring when all the the new growth comes out. So congratulations. What a great gift the city has gotten from the whole Forest Park project.
Thank you, and thank you for letting us come in front of you today. And just one more note, Mary Hoffman, in charge of fundraising, would be disappointing if I didn't say we're still taking donations on the park. We still have some work to do, 6%. So thank you very much.
Is it true, Ralph, that you're taking donations still?
Yes, we are. We are.
Just wanted to make sure that everybody got that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you for coming. Yep. All right. Next on our great agenda tonight, there is a joint task force initiative, which is specifically around the waiver of Lake Bluff non-resident fees. And I guess, Sally, you're going to tell us about that? We have something to vote on, I think, too, don't we?
We do. This is an action item, so you've been given a check and a gift, and now I have to ask you to work. So yes, so good evening, Chairman and board members. I am here to talk to you tonight about one of our joint task force initiatives. In August of 2014 of this year, Lake Forest and Lake Bluff Joint Task Force came before you and gave a presentation to discuss the recommendations they were making pertaining their investigation into our operations, service sharing, and cost efficiencies with Lake Bluff. And this is the first of their initiatives that's coming before you. This initiative is meant to bring about additional programming benefits as well as a broader sense of community for both Lake Forest and Lake Bluff residents. This first initiative is the waiver of non-resident programming fees for Lake Bluff residents in our Lake Forest recreation programming areas. The investigation of these fees has brought to surface, we looked at 9 different programming areas, and it's brought to surface a revenue loss, which is about 1%, totaling about $18,000 in revenue. As staff looked at it and we went forward across these 9 areas, which are up on the board. This sheet actually breaks down the revenues, the fees collected from Lake Bluff, and the surcharges that those non-resident fees brought in, and it indicates that we would have the need for about 64 additional registrations across these programming areas. Staff feels that this is very attainable. And as we go through, we're going to ask you to just consider that as we request the approval to waive the non-resident programming fees for Lake Bluff residents per the recommendation of the Lake Bluff, Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Joint Task Force.
So this, just for my clarification, this means that if I'm a Lake Bluff resident, I pay the same as I would pay if I were a Lake Forest resident for all programs.
For any program listed up here, so a camp or dance, wildlife discovery, athletics, anything in the cultural arts. There are a few programming areas that have been left out, such as beach permitting and pavilion permitting, as those fees have already been approved and discussed by you, as well as gone forward to City Council, so they were not considered in the revenue or in the loss. Lake Bluff will be taking this initiative before their board in January to request the same waiver of fees for Lake Forest residents in the Lake Bluff programs.
Any discussion from anybody?
No, Sal, has the discussion changed at all with the task force, given the passage of the referendum in Lake Bluff, that will make improvements to their facilities, or is that only seen as an additive to the cooperation on both sides?
It's only being seen as an additive to the cooperation of the two communities. So no further discussion.
The joint task force's work is complete, is it not? The recommendations and so
The
forth?
recommendations are complete. As I indicated last month, we will be going forward with an update to the task force in February to see if they have, to let them know where we're at and to see if they have any directives for us going forward. We are looking at a timeline that takes us actually out to the summer of 2016. So the work is not complete. The committee hasn't been disbanded, but they are not meeting regularly.
Got it. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I guess the motion I'd make, and Sally, you can tell me if this is not going to work, would be to move to waive the non-resident fees for Lake Bluff residents predicated on a reciprocal approval at the January Lake Bluff meeting, so that we would essentially benefit. And I throw that out, I could ask you the question first, but do you think that's in good spirit or no?
I think that is in good spirit. I also think that we could pass this without that codicil attached, simply because this is actually better for our programming. So.
In the
I
spirit
don't know, I'll
of...
look to my other board members, because I'm
yeah,
happy to
other thoughts on
I'm
that?
happy to revise the motion. I just want to make sure we're looking at both sides.
I don't have a problem
You?
with it either way.
I would suggest that I like the added language of the reciprocal, because I think it then it kind of keeps each community working together on these initiatives versus picking and choosing these initiatives, even though we would benefit from it and we would certainly continue to emphasize that. But I think the goal here was to try to work together on reciprocity. And so I think to add that into ours would then kind of put that onus on them to continue to work towards that same effort on their side right away as well. And if not, we can come back to you and say, do you want to revisit it just on our side? But I think it's a good language to put in there for now.
Sally, do we have a list of what Lake Bluff programs are going to be? Are they going to similar ones, or?
Yes, they are all similar. There are a few things that we have that they don't have, such as the Wildlife Discovery Center and the Sterling Hall Arts Center. So they don't have that to offer to us, but yes, it's a very similar list. And I would also add, to Mary's point, the reciprocity is important. It is something the Joint Task Force is strongly advising, so they will strongly advise as well in Lake Bluff.
You know,
So sorry.
no, I was just going to say, David, I understand sort of everybody's point of view here. I mean, what stops us? What my first reaction was, like, it's not quite as inclusive as a message as I'd like to send to our great neighbor to the north. And what stops us from reversing the decision if they decide not to do it anyway, right? I mean, it's easy for us to add fees. We can do it. I just wonder if we wouldn't say something like, in recognition of, you know, the recommendation of the Joint Task Force and our interest in a broader community, you know, we're going to charge them the same amount of fees as we charge our own residents, and we expect, you know, that they'll consider the same. But I don't know. I mean, making it contingent just does. I'm not sure. I like that message.
Let me just ask one more question, and then I'll withdraw my motion potentially. Is the swimming pool in Lake Bluff going to be included in the reciprocal arrangement, to your understanding, Sally?
To my understanding at this point, it is not. We are going to do a data collection next summer to see how many Lake Forest residents actually use the pool, and then that will come up for discussion again next year.
I guess to Scoot's point, I'm trying to figure out which activities within the Lake Bluff system the Lake Forest residents will anxiously await the approval in January for.
Currently,
When are we looking at implementing?
we would want to implement with our summer camp brochure.
So if they
And
don't.
I will say there's another step. We have a two-tier system here, so if it passes you, we still would have to go on to City Council for their approval in January, which I believe would be after Lake Bluff presents to their board.
I would add, just to clarify, because we did have this in the packet last month's packet, we had the timeline. The items that were pulled out as separate discussion items is golf course, lakefront, and beach. And then, so from a facility perspective, if that helps, those were items that we identified that we still need additional data studies, et cetera. And then, but the intent was things that are considered general recreation programs now would be reciprocal. So the pool is separate, you know, they call it aquatic facility, but is a separate, along with the beach, along with the golf courses.
Correct.
So.
Okay.
Sally, do we have any information on how many Lake Forest residents use the programs that we're thinking about making equal?
We do. Lake Bluff would have a little bit less than a 1% loss. It totals about $11,000 on their part.
Yeah, but their total budgets we're both 1% of the budget. Our budget happens to be bigger by $800,000.
The programming budgets are actually very similar. When you pull out the 9 areas, they're very similar in numbers.
That's amazing.
They would require about 45 additional registrations in order to break even.
I think the two communities have a special relationship, and I think this is a good step. It's a right step.
Okay, so I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. Do you want to make another motion?
No.
Okay. Anybody else want to make a motion?
I'll move that we accept the staff recommendation for waiver of Lake Bluff non-resident fees as presented in the agenda.
I would second that motion. You guys ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Opposed? I think it passes.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks. Sally, you're up again.
It's my show tonight.
I want to talk about ADA compliance.
We are going to talk a little bit about ADA compliance and the North Suburban Special Recreation Association. I'd like to give you a little bit of history about the inclusion policies as we've written them in the past, obviously. Around 2009, the Special Recreation Association Board asked the partner agencies to add language to their vendor contracts as well as their field policies to be in compliance with the American with Disabilities Act accommodation mandates. At that time, each partner agency crafted their own verbiage. And in early November of this year, the board, the NSSRA board, met again to review these policies and suggest some changes. These changes provide the ability for all partner agencies to provide appropriate and consistent wording throughout their contract and their field policies. Represented on this slide is the current language that we as Parks and Recreation crafted in 2009 and still use in our athletic field prep policy as well as our vendor contracting. It's very open-ended, so to speak. There's not a lot of detail. This is the proposed language from the Special Recreation Board, and it actually gives more detail to the requirements needed to comply with the mandates. And it allows our partner agencies to have a consistent message along with us. It's a bit of housekeeping. And so the requested action is staff is seeking approval for the ADA compliance language changes to Lake Forest Parks and Recreation vendor contracts and the athletic field prep policy to be consistent with all NSSRA partner agencies effective January 2015.
And I just wanted to give you a couple more points with it. As you know, I serve as chairman of I just stepped down. I just completed my tenure as the chairman of the NSSRA board. This was an item that was really brought to our attention because there was different language amongst all the partner agencies. And as part of their accreditation process, they are also a member of PDERMA, which is the Park District Risk Management Agency, and the Risk Management Agency brought this to the attention of the NSSRA board, and so the policy committee of NSSRA, which is made up of various board members, as well as the attorney for NSSRA, worked with the Risk Management Association to kind of look at everyone. So everybody sent their documents in and it was all looked at. So I wanted to reassure you that the language that's in here does comply fully with the legal mandates that the city, we adhere to these various codes and, requirements as far as, lack of, discrimination on human rights acts and things like that as well. So it really is kind of a housekeeping point for us because though we didn't have it on our registration form, we have language like this in our policies, but we just didn't have it all in we didn't have it all pulled together in one location. So, but really they are trying to have that consistency amongst all 13 partners, so there's not a legality issue that comes up later.
Is there any financial impact?
No.
From these changes?
With the language that we have in our contracts now, all of our vendors as well as our affiliate groups follow it. We've never had a complaint. We've never had a problem, and this does not affect revenue in any way, shape, or form. It's just verbiage to make sure that people are meeting the mandate of accommodation.
And Steve, I would add with that too, I think a lot of the groups actually feel relieved because they know there's a source that they can go to if they have a special need participant in their, sports program and they are going to need some support. They can come to us and ask for, assistance to find them the aids to help them in the programs. And so I think it's given them that reassurance that there's a source to help them meet their requirements by law too, because they're using our property. And since they're on our property, they do have to comply with, federal mandates.
Mm-hmm. So. Questions for Sally? No?
No, I would move to make the changes to the language as suggested by staff.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. Nice to have you out in front of us tonight.
It's been a while.
Mary, you're going to talk to us about the capital improvement projects that we spent so much time last meeting prioritizing.
I am. Before I do that, I did want to make a funny comment because Sally and I were talking about the ADA item, and she said, "Why don't you just talk on that?" And I said, "No, you haven't been in front of the board for a while. I think it's time. We're going to get you up there." And then she had 2 items on here, but I am.
Fine job.
Yeah, so I did want to talk this evening with the board to bring you up to date about our capital improvements project. And basically, this first chart, which I know you can see on your screens, a lot easier than looking up on the large one. But our process, as you recall, is the staff prepare in the fall a list of potential projects that we feel are a priority to be funded for the next fiscal year through a couple of different funding mechanisms. The capital fund, which is a fund that the entire city puts projects in, and the Park and Public Land Fund, which is a fund strictly for parks and recreation, and it's funded via impact fees. So at the October 21st meeting, the board members that were there helped us prioritize the projects based on a variety of elements that they looked at, whether it was urgency in relationship to maintaining the character of our community, safety features, whether it supported a revenue stream, the volume of people that would benefit, that kind of thing. And from that, this list that is up there was put together. And basically, in summary, it was looking at $590,000 of projects that we had hoped to fund out of the capital fund, which is the one shared with the entire city, and then a $130,000 project out of the Park and Public Land Fund, which was through impact fees, which was for the replacement of a playground at Everett School. And the Everett School project is one that we were very pleased with the fact that the School District 67 had agreed to partner with us up to $80,000 within that particular project. So again, it's a great sharing opportunity to accomplish a big need that's over there at that park. And then at the very bottom was the golf items, and the golf is an enterprise fund, and it's completely separate, funded via the revenues that come from the golf course without any taxation support. So those are the items that were in the meeting as of October 21st that I wanted to mention to you. The next sheet that's up here, though, is the Park and Public Land Fund, and I wanted to share this with you because at the October meeting, what I didn't have was the 5-year fund forecast, and this gave us, we didn't really know at the meeting exactly what our dollars were that were going to be available to fund projects out of there. And so if you look at the sheet that you have, let me see if I can get the mouse to work here. It's not, so I'll have to use the laser pointer. Whoops. And then maybe not. Should be working. Nope. What am I doing wrong? Yeah, okay. All right, so what I wanted to show you here is in fiscal year 16, originally we were unsure whether or not our starting balance, what that was going to be. And that really, based on what our year-end actual for the current fiscal year we're in, and impact fees that are coming in for next year, we really have the potential for being able to fund projects in the range of around $225,000 without completely draining that fund down. So it's a little bit more than we had anticipated, partly because we have the school district funds added into this as well, the $80,000. So when you look at the park impact fees, it shows $94,000, and the impact fees coming in 16 is estimated, and the grants is $130. 80 of that is the school district, and 50 is the foundation's normal donation to us from the festival and fireworks and other events. But as we heard tonight, we got $100,000 this year instead of 50, so that number will get bumped up. But the concern that we have really with this particular fund is when you start looking out here in fiscal years 18, 19, and 20, this fund, based on the potential priority one projects, which aren't very many, that are sitting there that could be funded from impact fees, we go into a negative. Even with our impact fees projections, which is very modest, $94,000 per year, assuming the final payouts of the pavilion from the foundation stretched over the next couple years, which may move up, at a faster pace. But we really have limited funds coming in, but we have more projects than we will have funding for. So that's a huge challenge that this particular fund has. However, we're not alone. Every fund of the city, the capital fund for the full city, other departments in which we get to be a part of, is in that same situation. So when we start to talk about that, the city manager then wanted to try to begin to set up, if you would, targets within our capital improvement fund. Now, this is the fund, again, that everybody shares out of for our needs, so that in essence, all needs in the city got some support. So it wasn't just, all we did in the city was spend our money on our roads while everything else deteriorated, or we didn't keep our IT infrastructure in place, which runs our business services and so on. So he worked on developing what he called the CIP targets, and we received these after our meeting with the park board. And this was a way for them to look at some guidelines for us, and each year to kind of have an idea what we might be able to receive in a funding level across the city. And as you can see, based on this, he's estimating 10 to 15% of what the funds would be available annually in the capital fund as potential for parks and recreation. In fiscal year 16, he then recommended that be at the 10% level of the total budget for the capital fund.
That doesn't include the roof, though, right?
That does not include the roof. And so partly why I think we're at the 10 versus the 15 is because there's a roof project, which we're going to talk about, that comes actually out of building maintenance, which normally would have been falling under facilities potentially, or, you know, the building, whichever building it's at, it would go into their particular buckets. So this is a discussion item still for council. They saw it for the first time in early November. They're weighing this to see if they think the allocations are good, a direction to go. But I wanted to share it with you because it does set some of the framework for now what's being proposed for this year that's under consideration. So as you can see in fiscal year 16, again, the big chunk goes to road and bridge throughout the community, and then capital equipment, which is again, and anything from fire, police, you know, public works, that kind of thing is funded out of there. We fund our own capital equipment out of our operations budget. We're not in that particular line item. We fund it out of operations, but that would be the capital equipment for throughout the city. And then we're third on the list as far as a funding level for departments, so at a 10% amount. So in addition to this to target development, the other thing the city manager asked all the staff to do was work on scoring all of our projects. So we came up with a scoring sheet that we worked on with like some of us as department heads, because they're really trying to find a way to look at all of these projects and help city council prioritize them once they get them from staff. And so we put together these scoring sheets, which was then reviewed by the city manager, and we all know it was kind of our first stab at it, so there are some adjustments that need to happen with it. But it was really trying to say whether or not projects truly are falling into the category of a priority for the city, or we want to look at other options. So having said that, this chart that I put in your packet, again, a little hard for those at home to see, was basically trying to help us all understand, as well as city council understand, really what has been the 5-year actuals and how that fits in with the fiscal year 15's proposal, and then our target for 16 and our priority ones for 16, and then really what would be the 5-year going out. And what I think is important for us, so I highlighted that in yellow for you up here, is that we're at a funding recommendation level in 16 for our priority ones at $300,000, but the average that we've had, the 5-year average, we've been more at $500,000. Yes, Charlie?
But 300,000 is only like 7.5% of the 4.1 million, not 10% like the other sheet showed.
That's correct. And I'll explain that in just a second. So, and then when you go down below on some of the lower levels was that these funds did not, these are specialty areas like the golf course, because it's an enterprise fund, or the motor fuel tax, the PPLs down there. These were the other funds that fell outside the big capital fund for the city. And he did not set targets because they have in some ways either their own funding mechanisms or different legal requirements about the funding levels, like the special rec levy and how that money can be used. So, so I wanted to show you then, after we went through the process with our projects, the city manager then reviewed our projects and matched it to, asked us to match it as staff to what our targets were. And so this chart up here I wanted to walk through with you is what we were recommending, the city manager is recommending to city council for our capital. And I did call Steve Hill, our chairman, about this when we had to look at revising this to make sure that he was a little more comfortable, because he also missed the park board workshop on this. So, so the first thing to note here really is that the top 3 items, which is our EAB program, which was the #1 item identified by the park board in October, in essence ate up our $300,000. And actually, we actually had $340,000 requested for EAB. And so this got reduced down to the 300 by taking 40,000 off what would be the tree replacement component. The thought being there that we have to remove the trees for safety reasons, so replacements really can't or shouldn't be adjusted, because we really want to make sure we're keeping pace and we're really, ensuring safety. We also didn't feel we wanted to change the treatments, because we were very strategic about the treatments that we did to either maintain a canopy in neighborhoods that have extensive only ash trees, and to remove them they would lose all of their trees, or they were heritage-sized trees that really made a significant difference in their neighborhood, to treat them, and had shown that they were not at this point in time in any deterioration component that would be at a level of thinking about removing them. So we recommended to the city manager as staff that he reduce the tree planting replacement program. And the good news on that, though we're dropping to the 60,000 this year instead of 100, is that we just got word we received a grant for 75 trees through a grant. So it's going to bring us back up pretty close to the volume of trees that we had planned to have this year without any significant impact. So I think that's really great news.
I think the other news about that is that we can always come back in future years and plant more trees.
Correct.
We can't really deal with safety issues later. We have to deal with those now. And obviously, if you don't treat the trees now, you're going to lose them. So I think priorities are probably right.
Okay, thank you. And then the item that I put out here just below this was something that we did not discuss at the October meeting, because it's a building maintenance project, but the Parks and Recreation Department will benefit from it, and that is a roof replacement at the Recreation Center. The roof that we have there right now has significant failures. We are nicknamed the Bucket Brigade on any rain day, as well as when snow begins to melt off during the winter, and it has we have a number of failures and challenging issues up there on the roof. And there will be a presentation by the Building Maintenance Division. They did speak to this topic at length at the workshop that the City Council had recently, but it will most likely be a topic that will come back before when it gets bid out. But if you have questions related to that, but the problem that we have is the membrane system that was put down is got so many failures in it that the underlayment below it is become saturated and unsupporting. And so they do have to come in and do a whole roof, which also requires them to lift all the HVAC units up in order to match to what would be a much better product that will have a lot longer longevity. This has been on the horizon for 5 years, and every single year it's been moved from a priority to the next year out, and the next year out, and the next year out. We've reached a point where we have been, building maintenance has spent more time in our building than any other building in the city, and we have had loss of the Marley floors in our dance studios. We do not run the scoreboard during our basketball games if there's any rain, because the water is coming down the walls into the electrical systems. We've lost ceiling tiles throughout the halls, and it's not one of these things you can just go up on the roof and say that's where the problem is. It migrates through a variety of entrance points and causes problems in the building. So,
how old is the roof? Remind me.
It was put on in '92. So we wish we would have done a little bit better system at that time, and that's what their goal is right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, so the next roof is going to last longer than 23 years?
Well, they say it's 25 to 30, and that's what you should expect. There are some recent roof work that was done by the city at Gorton as an example, and even at MS, those were some different systems. And the one that I guess they're recommending is more the one that they just put on at Gorton. It's a more similar roof style and membrane that they've been really impressed with its performance, and then also should help us with energy efficiency issues. But the other problem is we need a membrane that we can walk on, because we do have to service all those units up on top, and we have other reasons that, you know, we have Thorgard and things like that where we go up on our roofs. So we want to make sure it also can support walking on that without causing ruptures of the membranes. So if you have questions on that, I can give you Bill's number and you can talk with him at length, but I don't, you know, have all the background and all the roof part of it. But it's an $800,000 replacement. So knowing that this was coming up this year in the city, the city manager really felt that it was a fair balance of recreation projects this year, because we will benefit significantly by doing that roof project. So that got added into our bucket, if you will, this year for revenue for expenses for capital. So then that meant in this section on your sheets is these were the items that we had hoped to do if there was funding available that are being recommended to be deferred. And what the city manager chose to do is he called some items ones but not funded in 16. And that's the one that he identified for that was the West Park tennis court surface. And that was in order to continue to maintain these newer tennis courts with the crack repair that we've talked about. So we put it out there in the event that something gets bid, you know, as we go through the year and we bid things and maybe they come in at lower prices, or there's other funding sources, some project gets a grant that we don't know of, that council might want to look back at these projects that were ones but non-funded. In essence, if you think about it, I almost think of them as like 1As, that they could be something that could be revisited at a later date if funds came available. Whereas the next three items, which was the South Park entrance drive, the batting cages for the athletic fields, and the landscaping for city leased and city owned, those items would have to move out to future years or not have funds from capital placed towards them. The recommendation for the batting cage, after talking with staff and with the city manager, is that that's an example of one that we first should try to fundraise it through the athletic associations that use it. And if we can't achieve that, it can come back on the capital fund, you know, for discussion again next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a, those projects there added up to $200,000 of not being funded this year. But then, because we had a little bit more of impact fees come in than originally anticipated, we did think it was good to keep the Everett School Playground project on there, because we do have a partner with it. But the other real high item that the park board recommended that we take care of this year was the boat basins wood ramp replacements. The last remaining section of the dock system down there that is also very critical for our adaptive sailing program as well as our launching program. And interestingly enough, right when we did this, the big storm came in and tore our docks out. They were being pulled out into Michigan, the new docks. They're all going to have to be re-anchored and posts reinstalled in the spring when we can safely get in there. I was kind of hoping it was going to sink this wood ramp and tear that one up, but no, it held up like a champ. But we did lose some of the sheeting of that particular piece. So we do have some repairs down there. We have sent pictures into our insurance to see what, you know, if there's anything that will be able to recover from insurance damage, and I'll keep you posted on that one. But the recommendation is, since we do have impact fees that does benefit the public in general, it's an open facility, that we go ahead and take care of that one after all, since it's only $50,000 and we can fit it within our impact fees this next year and not take our, still leave some funds in our park and public land fund. So that's the staff's recommendation. And we did not change anything on the bottom related to golf. So did that answer your question, Charlie, now? So we were under 10% for the 300, but when you factor in the roof, we're way over our 10%.
And Mary, is the 800 for the roof what shows up in other on the CIP by category sheet?
Yes. I'm going to just back up to make sure.
Yeah, this sheet where it says other?
Yes, that's the 800,000, correct.
Mary, on that same sheet, what is Park Rec F220 and 223?
Let me just get back to that sheet for you.
Yeah, it's right there. Oh, she's got it up there.
Underneath the public land, the $150,000.
That is, yeah, that is our fleet costs. That's our fleet costs. That actually, it's 220, and it gets a title for fleet equipment because we actually take the money out of our operations and set it aside for fleet, and then they spend down out of it for our fleet, which is our pickup trucks, our forestry equipment, that kind of thing.
Oh, okay, this is fleets, okay. But you're still funding out of operating expense.
We are.
150,000, right?
Right, so the 220 represents the operational fund. It just is a transfer into what's called 223, so it sits out there, so it's accessible for Public Works to spend out of.
As
So,
capital.
it's capital, correct.
I just want to clarify, so the boat ramp replacement is going to be funded out of the PPLF?
Correct,
Okay.
Through impact fees.
And the same with the Everett Park?
correct,
So those two things will happen next year, they just won't happen out of the city's CIP?
correct.
Got it.
Correct. And obviously, city council still has to weigh in on this with a final approval. They've only seen it one time. They do that, after the first of the year, they'll give us, any direction on something that has to change. But I think it's important to know that, there was $4 million of projects funded this year in the city's capital, for everyone, but there was $7 million of projects that were not funded. And so that morphs into other years where we also have monies that we're not going to have coverage. So this is a bigger topic. Now, a lot of that 7,000 was the train station underpass.
7 million, you mean?
That 7 million was the train station underpass because we're hoping to get grants or other funding sources to help with that, but we don't have it yet, so that number could come down, slightly. But the city is really at a point where we've got more capital than we have capital funding sources, and that's going to put a push and pull on all funds, for all departments of the city on how to prioritize going forward. I think for the park board, one of the things that's a big unknown for us in the Park and Public Land Fund is Laurel Avenue, when it's eventually sold to developer, what, if any, impact fees will come to the rec department? Because technically that's a new development. In essence, there should be impact fees that come to the city. So to the extent that we'll find out what that might be, that would help us with our funding mechanisms in the future if they impose the standard impact fees. If as part of their negotiations with that developer, they reduce that requirement, then that could change things for us. So that's an unknown, and again, we should know that this winter as they continue the negotiations with the Laurel Avenue redevelopment project.
Our needs, though, are pretty well articulated, and those who are negotiating know our needs, right? So.
I believe so. We have a really good council right now. They've been spending a lot of time looking at all of this and trying to, I think, fairly gauge what are really critical things. And most of our items are not new. They're simply replacement or maintenance of existing amenities that are enjoyed by our community. I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges. We're just trying to keep pace with what we have or not lose things. And yet, as a community, park and recreation services typically evolve. Like adding a batting cage at a park, for us shows a lot of excellence. It brings an excellence to the program that we've been lacking. So it would really enhance our program and keep us on pace with our neighbors and the other things that our communities, our kids are out there competing on these baseball teams and things, and they don't have the same sport equipment and that kind of thing in order to do that, keep that skill level up. So I think those are going to become more challenging as well because this doesn't reflect anything new. Our capital only reflects what we currently have. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, it'll be an opportunity for people who are really passionate to come forward, and they can use the foundation as a vehicle if that's something they want to do.
I know, I agree. We did have the workshop, you probably remember this summer, on kind of a visioning workshop with our board and the foundation, and we did identify some top projects of interest. They were all pretty big ticket items, nothing that was too small. And I held off on doing too much with it because I was hoping before then we would know the Laurel Avenue situation within impact fees, as well as the foundation was working on, some capabilities of paying off their project and their interest in what they want to do next. But I think that this winter or spring, we should probably revisit that when we have a better sense of our funding future, and we now have these 5-year looks at all the funds and how we're going to fit in. Because originally, when we lost the telecommunication tax in the Park and Public and Land Fund, they said, oh, but you'll have impact fees of Barrow and you'll have Laurel Avenue. Well, not only did that go to the capital fund, but now even the capital fund doesn't have that, because that's a funding that's almost dried up because the telecommunication industry has changed so much. And then the impact fees, we've become built out, but those two, Woodlands became a private property transfer, which was no benefit to the impact fees. And so in Laurel Avenue, it's a tough environment for negotiations right now. It's getting better, but so I think that we've seen in our fund, but also other city funds, more challenges than ever, and I think we are going to have to really work with our community, get community buy-in, and get the community behind some of these projects to make them happen. I mean, and that's fair, to really find that we have the support. So that's going to be the challenge. I mean, obviously parks do not have really very many opportunities to raise fees, so you can't always just raise the fees off the recreation side of it to support the parks, because our fees would become out of whack with what our competition offers, or, what people can afford. So I think it really is going to force us to step up and look at, private funding, more funding opportunities, and, it may be time to revisit naming rights, that kind of thing again as well, so.
Bearing in mind, we also have about a 2-year window with EAB that has kind of stonewalled what we would have as our normal infrastructure spending. So I can't remember what Peter's slides were when we looked at them a couple of months ago, but I think it's safe to say that it tails off after fiscal 17, right, Chuck?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So that will bring hopefully the 300,000 back to us for maybe other things. So, I do think though, $500,000 in a park and rec system of a community our size is pretty low compared to our neighboring communities. But we do have to live within our fiscal means, and we do have a community that is very supportive. And so we'll have to just, continue, I think, to reach out and find all avenues that can help us achieve our goals. So. So that's where it is. There wasn't any action for you tonight. I just wanted to share with you where things had changed and what was different, and make sure that you were comfortable with the direction that it appears to be headed. If you have any concerns, I'm be happy to share that with council as well. But I didn't want you to be surprised in packets that will be coming out, to through city council. Right.
When is that vote then?
Well, city council will be talking about it after the first of the year again. They typically approve the capital project budget in March, but because they like us to be able to get out in front and get bids and things going, sometimes they give us a sense of, you're on track earlier, but I think in January they may give us at least some indication of it, but we don't get a final approval list until March.
Mary, do you have any comments in addition to what we've just heard?
No, I mean, I just would say to the community that, we would love to do South Park parking lot. So, it's in bad shape. We recognize that. There's going to be things like that are in our community that, need to be addressed, but we are trying to find the right balance right now. And you will see that there'll be more challenging times for us to respond with being able to do things. To lose the money for the landscaping for city properties is a big one. As an example, last winter, we lost all the boxwoods in the entire Market Square area and around the downtown area. That money allowed us to fix all of that. Without that in our funds, the question next year will be, how do we fund that too? So those would be things we'd have to come back to city council and say, you didn't fund it through capital, but we have this need, and they would have to justify spending them out of fund balances or authorizing, emergency project funding for that. So those are just some things that makes us just have to do business a little differently than we've had to do, but we may have to come back to council more often with items as they maybe deteriorate faster than we had anticipated, or our residents may be surprised that we have to hold off on some projects that they think would be a very high priority, but in the scheme of things, EAB, as David aptly, pointed out, it's our highest priority right now. It's a safety issue for the community, so.
Okay.
Sorry?
You don't need to move away from where you are. Do you have further comments, or do you have notes over there you want to refer to?
My director's comments? Yes,
Yes.
just a couple things. I'll stay right here. I just wanted to mention that, talking with Steve, we normally would have a committee of the whole workshop in December, but we really don't have anything, I think, that's that urgent that we need to meet in December, so I'd like to recommend that we cancel the December Park Board meeting. So our next meeting would be in January. And the January meeting, because City Council's normally on Monday night, and that would be Martin Luther King birthday, they move their meeting to Tuesday night. So they'll be in here Tuesday night. So our January Park Board meeting will be at Municipal Services. It will be an action meeting, but it won't be televised. So just kind of just keeping you guys on track with that. And Steve Reimer, our new board member, will be joining us at the January meeting at that time. Couple other quick things. I did want to mention to you that we've got the Sterling Art Center's holiday show coming up in December 12th and 13th, I believe. And so we hope that everybody will come out and support that. That is, our students put on that show with the teachers and sell their wares from ceramics and tile works and paintings and things like that. And it is a fundraiser for the Sterling Art Hall. And then the other item, I'll send out a link to the Park Board members, is that Rob Carmichael was assisted in a filming for the National Geographic, and it's going to be aired. Do we know the date of that, Jeff? Do you know it off the top of your head? But we are mentioned in the credits, and Rob's rattlesnakes were a part of that filming and everything, and it's going to be on TV, so we wanted to mention that to you. We continue to be sought out as a highly reputable conservation organization, and we're really proud of that. Staff, anything else that I forgot to mention?
I would just like to mention that Deer Path is closed. Deer Path Golf Course is closed. However, we will be open on Tuesdays through Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. or by appointment. So you just have to call the general manager to set up appointments. Also, on November 29th, we're doing small business Saturday, participating in that again from 10 to 4, where you can save up to as much as 75% on any stock goods that you have.
So when you're saying the golf course is open, you're referring to just the clubhouse itself. So the course itself is closed. Yeah.
We do have. We still have
it'll
some.
be closed for quite a while.
Well, we do have merchandise still for sale there. We will have winter indoor lessons again this year, and then we will start our membership sales after around the first of the year as well. So that's why we do have traffic still coming in and out there for that purpose. So, so I think that with that would conclude my notes for tonight.
And where do we stand with the Kemper contract?
We met with Kemper this week. We are down to really negotiating some final risk liability language in that, and we do hope to have that wrapped up by the end of the week with another kind of hopefully the final look at it, with signatures anticipated next week. So we're close.
That would be to make that effective, what, January 1st?
It would be a contract beginning January 1st, correct?
That's great. Good to hear progress there. Anybody want to say anything else?
All of the lights in the city are up and ready to go. Mary?
The holiday lighting,
Yes.
yes. We have the tree lighting on next Friday, and we were excited because we picked up the trees, I believe, today for the Market Square, so those will be put in place. It's always a great holiday event, as I'm sure all of you have experienced over the years, so that is on Friday, next Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. And there's something you just said that made me think of, you said lights. It's a long night.
That's okay.
Never mind.
Okay, thank you.
Send me an email if you think of it.
All right. All right. If there isn't anything else, then I'm going to move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Good work, Mr. Chairman.
I know what it was. Darn, it was the ice rink at West Park.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that, but I did, but as cold
get
as
that
it
going pretty
is, I'm
fast
sure
if you
it'll be
want, huh?
ready for Thanksgiving.
They're starting to lay out.